Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and are you ready to enter the Matrix? Because my name is Agent Snail, Trask Snail, and I'm joined by...
I am the operator, Kirklin Patzer.
I'm the pill, Taylor Field.
It just sounds dirty. It just
Sounds so
you know.
junky, like
Yeah.
I'm the pill.
Are you the red pill, the blue pill, Taylor?
I'm whichever pill the person wants to choose.
He's the multivitamin.
Yeah. The red and blue pill.
The guano pill.
Yeah.
I just took one. No, it's been so funny. Like, I really like the posters, but have you guys seen the new Matrix Resurrection posters with them wearing the glasses? And one glasses is red and one is blue. Look it up while I'm talking right now.
Yeah.
And I get the idea they're going for, right, because the pills and everything, but it literally just looks like they're promoting Matrix being 3D. Like, it looks really funny because it looks like old school 3D glasses. So it's funny. Most of the posters are really good. Trailers. I think that first share is maybe the best one of the year. But yeah, I love the glasses one. It's so funny. But
I'm not seeing it. Sorry.
Put in Matrix Resurrection. What did you put in glasses?
Matrix Resurrection poster. I'll go new
Put
poster.
Glasses. Maybe put glasses in there. You know.
New poster glasses. 3D
Something
glasses.
But, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Matrix Retrospective. This is one that we are almost not going to do, but because you, the fans, supporting us, we are making the time to do it. You guys, as we say, legitimately, it's not a gimmick. The more support you give us, the more time and content we can put into the podcast, because this is one with the amount of podcasts we're doing. We do already a minimum of 5 to 6 a week, and now we're adding a 6th one on here because we have this. We have the Patreon Retrospective, so as always, the patrons and listeners, you make a big difference. So, but we really wanted to do this one because obviously we all hope the best for Matrix Resurrections, but we don't know, that could be the end of the franchise there. Maybe it's a kickoff to a new one, but there might be no better time than to do the Matrix Retrospective now. So what we're going to be doing, the release schedule is going to be all over because we're just trying to figure out time. So like this one's releasing on a Thursday. The next ones, that's why you just got to follow. Where can they follow us, Taylor Field?
With your internet connection in the search bar. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerseCast is our Twitter. GeekVerse on our Facebook. And you can also find us on your Patreon, our Patreon.
Not on your Patreon. We're not giving you content.
We're not going to be on yours.
Yeah.
Unless you pay us. Like a few $1,000s.
Wow, you're just begging for money. You're just begging.
Give us an NFT.
Me begging would be like 10 grand.
Get some cryptos.
NFT, yeah. We'll accept gift cards if you got them. But no, ladies and gentlemen, yes, Patreon, which I already talked about, Taylor, but Taylor took us all the way back. There you go. Oh, that's that pixels, man. Ooh, that's
it's the only one I could find. It's like Korean. It's not even.
That's fair, but like
Yeah.
that's the idea of it. But yeah, weekly Hawkeye reviews, weekly Dexter reviews, 2 newscasts a week. We got Spider-Man coming up. We'll be doing Matrix Resurrections. I have no fucking tickets. The tickets still aren't on sale. They're on sale and burning.
I almost bought the tickets for like the 20th anniversary.
thinking that's the one.
I'm like, Travis is an idiot. What do you mean tickets aren't on sale? It's right here.
Yeah. This poster looks oddly familiar, but no. So we got just a pack. We were just talking about offcast. We got the fucking Witcher dropping. Like, there's so much stuff. So if you like all this geek nerd goodness, these shows, and you want someone to instantly react, have a good time, this is the place to do it. Check out everything down below. That's where you can find our separate feeds, that's where you can find our podcast network, our video and audio forums, our Manscaped code, everything to do with GeekVerse and how you can support and just enjoy listening. So, yes, I think this is going to be lots of fun, and it's going to be interesting because we're starting obviously with the tippy top. So, Kirklin Patzer, what was the, because we got, this is like a really wide range because this movie came out in 1999. So when was the first time you saw Matrix, and then transition that into like your thoughts about today as you just rewatch it? But like, when did you first hear the Matrix? When did that become a known thing in your life? Like the Matrix? It would have
probably been like 2000, or if not around that time. I mean, I was born in 96, so I was pretty damn young. It might have been later on, like after the movie had come out. But like,
so you're thinking you saw Matrix at the age of 5?
Probably
2000?
near that, honestly.
Okay.
Probably near that. My dad was fearless. He was a very young dad. Didn't really understand the parental guideline, but thanks, Dad, because I got exposed to Matrix really young. But no, like I think my dad just really, really liked it for obvious reasons. Like when it came out, it was just so turn of the century type movie. And major game changer. And I think like he loved just like the action sequences. Probably like he's a big fan. He got me into like Underworld, Resident Evil, like those types of movies too.
He's my kind of dad.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll get him on one day, Taylor. But no, like I think he had just wanted to wanted to watch it with me for like the action sequences. Another one that we loved watching together was Blade. So like again, similar type of like action of like the leather suits.
Black trench coats.
Yeah, black trench coat, exactly. So I don't know exactly what date it was. It obviously wasn't in theaters or anything. But when I first watched it, I really didn't grasp any of the story. Like the story went completely over my head. I was like, oh man, that bank scene with like Neo goes in there with all the guns, and just like those action sequences were really what stood out to me. And I had seen it quite a few times. It was one that we had on VHS. So, and like still I didn't really grasp the story. I feel like a couple years ago I like rewatched it and I'm like, oh, this is so different than what I thought it was. But no, I think that's something really special about the movie is that you like it's so rewatchable, and maybe people would push back on that. I don't know. I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts on it because I was watching it obviously like last week, and like I was just like, man, like this movie just stands the test of time. Like I think this is such a great movie, and I was having so much fun watching it. And like, yeah, you can call it cheesy and like, oh, like it's such a cliche for them to drop this line here. I feel like this movie like started a lot of these like cliches and like these like cheesy one-liners, specifically in like an action type movie like that. Like there's just so many lines when they say it, and maybe it's the camera on them, maybe it's their outfits, and it's just like so like late 90s. It's like, oh, this is so like cheesy, but also not, because it's just what like the vibe of the movie's like. And yeah, I feel like this really started a lot of like the cheesy one-liners, or at least ones that have been reused. And it's also like a movie that has been maybe parodied or like taken a lot of inspiration from like in different movies. Like a lot of people like take a lot of stuff from this movie. Like specifically, I think like Conquer. Did anybody play like Conquer, that game series? There's a sequence where he goes through like a Matrix scene, and like it's just he goes through the bank, and it's like the exact same thing. And I feel like there's been quite a few products, whether it's video games or movies, that have just like not copied it, but like just done like a take on it, whether they're, oh, remember the Matrix? Yeah, this is what we're doing. Like the classic like dodging bullets, like that move is just like people were calling it like, oh, he's doing the Matrix, you know? Like it's such a I'm at a loss of words for describing it, but it's just such a special movie, and seeing it 20 years later, like it's just, in my opinion, it's still so relevant. And I'm excited to talk about the specifics. I'm kind of rambling here. I'm just so pumped on the Matrix. I'm very pumped that it's back. I'm very pumped that we're going through them because like we're gonna do the second and third movie before the fourth one comes out, but like
no, actually we're just gonna see this.
well, I'll do it on my own time.
We're gonna do the
then,
Animatrix. We're gonna do the animated show.
Like Taylor mentioned on a previous cast, like I also have like basically zero memory of those other movies. I remember like the Ghost Twins. I think that's about it. So I'm excited to go through them, which is a fresh pair of eyes. And yeah, that'll be another cast, but we're dissecting this one right now, and I was talking way too long, so someone else take it.
Oh no, please, Taylor Field.
Ooh, I think you said a lot of on-point things, Kirkland.
Everything's wrong.
Like I said, I think you said a lot. It's like, yeah, I did. I'm sorry.
The fact that it's such an iconic movie that really kind of stood on its own 2 feet at the time, and so many different mediums reference it these days. I think it's just crazy because when I was watching it, there would be certain unique moments or lines that were dropped, and I would think to myself like, oh, like that seems so familiar, and then I have to think, well, of course it does. Like it's saying it in so many other like movies and TV shows, but I have to remember that this is where it starts for so many of these things, and it's just such a great starting point back in the day, especially for being like a 90s film. There's something about a lot of these 90s films that just were iconic and really set the bar so high. And I think this movie's aged really, really well. Like Kirkland, it's been a long time since I've seen these movies. I hardly at all remember the other ones. And this one, for me, I saw probably not till much later in my life. And probably would have been like at my dad's when I bought it on like VHS or something like that and just watched through it and gone through the trilogy. And I think it's just a great film that can really open your mind up to a lot of things. Again, I'm not saying like, hey, the Matrix is real, like, oh shit, or anything like that. But
who would be that
it's
guy?
It's just such a cool concept, and it's awesome to think about that as a concept too, like just living in the Matrix and just what your mind can do, and just it's so unique that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen something like that represented in like other forms like TV shows and such. I'm sure that it's been explored and everything, but I
Like
just
what?
think, well, just like living like in a Matrix kind of an aesthetic environment for like a TV show or a movie. I'm just surprised that it hasn't been like tackled in another form or something like that. But maybe it
Yeah.
has been.
I think like Kirkland said, there's inspirations. Like you could argue, I'm sure he would say no, but you could argue Inception is very Matrix-y vibe in a way where it's like their Matrix is a dream world where they're enhanced and they can do all this stuff and everything like that. There's a great movie. Well, I don't know if it's so great. I have to say good, but there's a movie called Equilibrium with Christian Bale. You guys should check out. It looks very
Sounds
much
familiar.
like a Matrix knockoff. You look at it, it has like kind of almost bolt time feels. It has like the black leather and everything like that.
Oh my
Like, Gates
God,
is in-
yeah.
Oh yeah. He's-
2002.
He's rocking my. If I'm not mistaken, he's rocking my hair in that, isn't it? It's like really slick back. I'm pretty sure the posters are Christian Bale.
Yours is more Norman, but yeah, it's pretty similar.
but it's slick back, right? Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
check that out. But yeah, I think it's I think there's just some that have taken inspiration, but it's tough because you don't want to be copying, right? You don't want to get you don't want to be the lesser Matrix.
Is that what this was? Because it looks like it.
I think so, yeah. Pretty much. We'll throw that in the retro after Matrix Resurrections. When we're just looking for anything Matrix, we'll watch Equilibrium. But check it out. It's a nice little watch. So anything more, Taylor, for now?
For now, no.
Yeah, so I've always said this before, and I think it's a weird thing as a podcaster, but like these reviews are the ones that scare me the most because it's like you have a movie that's been so like legendary for since it came out, not just like a cult thing where it's like, oh yeah, it grew over time. It's like, no, the second this hit, and obviously, so I was alive. I was born in 1999, so I was just at the peak of this. No, I was in 1993, so I was about 7 years old when this happened. I feel like I've seen it 3 times. Once on TV, I just caught the interrogation scene when his mouth closed, and I was like, what the fuck is this movie?
That shit scarred me when
That was the very first scene, because at first it was just, if you're just watching it as like a younger kid, it's just some boring, like not boring, but it's just a guy in an office. I don't even think I saw the training part. It's just like a guy in the office. He's running. So like, okay, maybe some cop drama, whatever. And then all of a sudden, his mouth just starts to form. And there's some other weird stuff that happens in the movie at that point. But that was the kick of like, what is this? Now I think for a while it was kind of a like, oh, I don't know if you could watch it because it's rated R. Now I think it helps that that's rated R, but really, like when you look back on it, it doesn't really need to be, and maybe in some of the sequels get to, but like the amount of swearing's pretty low. The violence, other than the bank scene, it's like you could shoot around that. Like, and again, the newest one's radar, so more power to them. But like, you could very much make this a PG-13 type of movie. Like the great stuff about this movie is not like the violence or the sex and the swearing, but it was a movie like, oh, I don't know if you could watch it. And then I watched it at some point when I was younger, and that was definitely just like, I don't know if I understood it, but I don't think I was really caring at that point. That was just you're watching with a bunch of friends, and it's like, look at this action, look at these moves and whatnot. It wasn't until later on where I really rediscovered it, and it was just like, there was a time, and I'm not sure if it was before or after. I feel like it was after, because what, 2006? Yeah, it could be around right. I always talk about like after I saw The Departed, that like changed my world as far as how I viewed movies and the type of movies I was into. So I think in that era, I watched a lot of movies for the first time, and I rewatched a lot of movies for the first time. And the problem is for me, like, I can't say like, oh, I feel like I got it. I just feel like whenever I did watch it, when I was watching it, I had friends around me that had probably seen it multiple times, or their brothers had seen it multiple times, so they would explain it to me. But it's one of those that I think the more you watch it, is a rewarding experience. It's something that I don't, like I said, I can't say like, oh, I couldn't grasp it, because like I said, I felt like it was pretty explained to me. And I think the most impressive thing about it is, yeah, you guys are saying it stands up. Like, other than that part where Agent Smith blows up at the end, like, even the effects look all really good. They're really smooth. The action's really smooth. Yeah, it's some like wire work, but I love all these fight scenes. They're just like, just in your face, smash mouth, gritty, and they're just like, it's like there's painful scenes, like the scene when like Agent Smith and Morbius fight. You just feel every single hit, every single action, and that's the best part. Is like, there's movies and there's action movies that have like the big explosive and gun battles, but then there's movies like this where the action really stands out and every set piece really stands out and it feels special. And what I was talking about when I'm always afraid to review these movies, it's just like, this movie is, if you were to make a list of movies that were perfect or almost perfect, this would be one of them on there because there's not really anything I could change. Like, and that's why for me, of course, I think most podcasters talk about this too, where it's like, it's the like movies you dislike are so much easier to review because like Resurrection or Reloaded and Revolutions we'll get into. And there's so many stuff I can say, oh, I wish they did that or why they do this, but everything from start to finish, once you get that plot in your head, it's just perfect. It's laid out perfect. Keanu Reeves is like Keanu Reeves, right? Like he's like the character of Mr. Anderson is not like the most interesting guy. I think this is the tail end, the 1999, because it's funny that we had Phantom Menace coming back at this time. I feel like this was when people were finally after Matrix was when they were done with like the one storyline, which is funny because we just got it recently in Dune and that was done so well and we talked about that. But I feel like after this, people are like, hey, I'm done with the one storyline. So it's the last one again there, and he does a good job. The cast is pretty well casted, but it just when you talk about technology and everything, it does not feel like a movie that was made in 1999. Just even the simple conversations about coding is stuff that I feel like has been talked more about in the past 10 years than 1999. Like that's why I feel like for our generations, like our age, I feel like it was maybe, I'm not trying to sound like we're so much smarter, I just feel like it was maybe easier for like I think my mom always said like, oh, I just never got it, you know, and there's older people I've told I never got it. Like I think for us it was easier to consume because we grew up with some of those things, like with coding and video games and software, where if you weren't into that type of stuff in 1999, this was just a whole like, what, okay, there's coding, oh, and they've coded a whole world around you that's a fake world and it's a computer, but you come at it like, for me I think it's just like video game stuff sets you up for that. But again, it's almost like this probably inspired the stuff that set us up for it to consume it. So it's a movie that it's like I said, there's not many complaints or cons. Like I didn't write any down. There might be something. It's always every movie a nitpick, the small little continuity error, but it's just impressive. And I think the best thing about it is that it's smart in the way that it hints about the bigger world and it doesn't get into it. Now that's where we'll get into the sequels, which will be fun because that's when it's like, okay, when you talk about all these other things out there and the bad guys and good guys, when you do the sequels, that's when you got to show that all. But in this first one, it feels, you know, enough of a world-ending event, but it still feels relatively small in a sense. Like, and that's one of the best things. It feels very personal, but it has like obviously huge stakes. The Matrix, right? So just everything from start to finish, the Wachowskis do such a good job, and just visually, just a stunning movie. It's one of those things that you could pause it almost at any frame, and it looks like a graphic novel, looks like a photo you'd want framed. Like, just things like when Neo's like pulling up to see Trinity, and he's like, or they're pulling up to see him, and he's just like underneath that bridge, and there's water because the rain's coming down. Like, constantly, there's just like, it's a visual smorgasbord between the real world, the Matrix, and yeah, it's just everything hits. Like I said, there's little things that I'll talk about, but nothing majorly big. It's just it's one of those films you watch, you go, this makes sense why it was so important back in the day and why it became such a phenomenon, you know?
And I think the thing that really blows my mind the most, like everything that you mentioned with like the cinematography wise, like I'm watching it nowadays and I'm like, man, this is insane, like how well done this is actually. Because like when I was a
Lots
youngin',
of it
like
practical too.
Yeah, and just like the creative shots of like transitioning scenes. There's a lot of moments when it would go from like a TV monitor and then it goes into like Neo, like that's the interrogation scene, right? Like it's going through a security cam, and then it's as if you're like entering like a computer type program. And so many of those things just go over my head until I'm watching it like a week ago, and it's like, man, this is so clever. And that's why I just believe it stands the test of time. And honestly, I think it's one that like is more relevant like nowadays because like they like, especially with like the operator and like people just like looking at the code, it's like I don't even see the code anymore. I just see lady in the red dress or whatever it is. And like back in the day, it was just like, okay, yeah, this is like Hacker Man, I don't understand any of this. Whereas like what you mentioned, Travis, like 10 years ago, maybe that's where I could see a movie like this like placed just more in the times, because people are more aware of just like what coding is. like in the 90s, I thought it was just like what hackers did, and that's how they like just I don't know, they're criminals, and like that's just what I equated it to, right? We had movies like Swordfish. I don't know when that movie came out, but somewhere around that same time. That's all about hacking.
Hackers.
Yeah, and like I think it just had that like that like reputation of like oh you're a computer coder, okay, well you're a hacker or something like that, just because that's what I was familiar with from those movies. But like nowadays it's just such a booming industry, and people that maybe aren't even too familiar with like computer program or coding, they can at least at least I don't know, maybe understand a little bit of what it actually is. I think way back then it wasn't that, and that's why when I watch it now, especially when people bouncing around the ideas of like simulation theory, like I feel like it's never been more relevant, like just like those types of talks in everyday conversations, and that's essentially what this movie is, right? Like deferring, like is this real? Is this not? And like that's what just blows my mind. Like when I'm watching it now and I'm like, man, this is insane. Like it's like fine wine. Like it just gets better with time. And I was gonna jump into some Matrix Resurrections things, but we've already done many predictions on that. So, but yeah, I don't think I have anything else to like gloss over overall.
Maybe you got a solid point there, Travis, about what their is our demographic kind of like being more well versed, and maybe that was the whole point of the long con of this movie. They released it in '99 so that it would pay off now. That's why they're doing the 20th anniversary release and everything. So they're gonna make a killing at the box office.
I don't know if that's how that worked back then and everything like that. This movie, it took a while to get being made. I didn't put it in my IMDb, but there's like this script note where they put in there like, okay, well the movie's good up until page 35, and then after that, like, it's a mess, and like we would accept this script, but like we'd have to pay you much lower than what you're asking, and you know, we'd have to rewrite everything from 35 and on because it's just too much, it's too wordy, there's too much context and stuff. And it's funny, like, and I could see that, and it is a movie that I think you could have easily seen being a bomb. I do think like the sci-fi-ness helps it. I do think there's, of course, a majority of, I hate to say it, but like there's definitely, like, this movie has two sides. There's like the intellectual side, and then there's the dude bro side, because this movie has a lot of dude bro-isms, and that's where I think it's like if you want to sum up the 90s, like this is the 90s. Like the fucking soundtrack is the 90s, you know, like Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie's Rage Against the Machine. Like
when they go to the club in the beginning.
Yeah, that's the Rob Zombie song, and it just like it feels like this bred all the Xbox players, you know, like that love shooters and everything like that. But that's how I think I think that's how it got to the big hit. But then I think why it got so relevant and stuck around, and probably like previewing stuff like that, is because of the intellectual side and the hacking stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, if you just want to watch a good action movie, you can completely tune out for all the whatever. All you need to know is that world's fake, this one's real, and then kick ass over here.
No,
you know?
exactly.
And that's where they're kind of smart, where they've put it in a good package where they almost trick you. It feels like a lot of like Black Mirror episodes where it's like they get you in with the. And I've actually, honestly, I should watch it. I've never watched a single trailer for this. I should watch and see what they marketed this as, because it's so funny. The other day, actually just yesterday, me and Emily, we were showing Gwen the Amazing Spider-Man trailer, and that was just from like 2012, and we're like, fuck, this trailer is awful. Like just the way it's edited and it's so cheesy. So like I don't even know how they marketed this. And this is a movie too, like I understand like why, like now we look back and we laugh like, oh man, they wanted to rewrite, but like I completely understand studios being like scared to make this movie at the time. And funny enough, Warner Brothers being like a forward-thinking studio at the time, I was like, yeah, let's do it. But like you try, like it's one of those movies I would go like, how would you have pitched this to the? And I'll have to find it, sent to you guys. They had the whole synopsis, they had how they pitched it, but it's just like I could see why so many studios turn this down, because you would worry like it's going to be too heady. But I think they found that right balance of the second it is getting very heady or very talking about a lot of things, they bounce it with something cool or something clever, or, you know, a imitation of like the Red Woman or the Red Dress Woman, or like the jumping or the Kung Fu. Like there's a good kind of bounce and pacing towards it. That's why, again, we'll say it for the sequels, that's one of the biggest marks against, is like it's just almost so much exposition, and the action is like when it's there it's big, but there's lots of just heavy, like hitting you with this and this and this. But I think they give you enough of the idea that they're putting forward, but they don't just like drown you in it. I think like the best example I'd use that in the movie of like getting the point across in a smart, simple way is when they talk about, and they go, oh, you know, this tastes like oatmeal. And they're like, how do you know it tastes like oatmeal? I was like, well, that's what it tastes like in the Matrix. And then he starts explaining chicken. He's like, why do you think everything tastes like chicken? Because it's almost like they don't know what it would taste like, so it's all in the foods. But then he goes, but does chicken actually taste like that? Or do I think it tastes like that because the Matrix? And I think right there, out of the movie, that's the best simple explanation of what the Matrix is. And even then, like, you have all these characters that, like, you look at Cypher, where he knows what he's going to choose is not real, but he'd rather live in that real world and have like a fake fantasy, and ignorance is bliss, right? Then go back to the real world. And I think that's something that that has nothing to do with hacking or coding or anything. That's just a life thing. And I feel like that lives with many people. Like, you could choose to open one door or ignore the other, and it's like it's just as simple as ignoring your problems. And like Morpheus, the one, and then like Agent Smith, we'll talk about them all, but they all have different sides of the Rubik's Cube of how to tackle this issue. So it's not just one, because at the end of the day, as I've said, it's not a con. I think just Thomas Anderson, like, he's not a really interesting character. He is just there to be the one, right? He's a vessel that just gets everything. Like Keanu, like, I think he's a better actor now, but Keanu has his limitations. He's like Nick Cage, where you can get a great performance out of him, but like he's very one note in this. But like the one has to be, right. He's just there to be what everyone else puts on him, and that's what I mean. I don't say it as a negative, but it's just like it's so much like when they talk about back in the day when Will Smith was going to be in this role. It's like that would have been such a different character and whatnot. But Keanu, it's funny, his kind of like docile, like, energy he brings to roles works for this one, because I think him being an empty vessel is the way to go for the one, because that's such a generic, term nowadays. But
absolutely, you said a lot that I wanted to add on.
I did.
There,
sorry,
you were just rolling.
like
no,
you,
it was good.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. I love it. No, just something that you mentioned was like the diversion from dude bro and like deep thinking philosophicalness of this movie. I think that's what makes it so rewatchable for me, because when I was a youngin, my brain wasn't fully formed. I'm just like eating all those dude bro moments. When you do the cheesy line, it's like, oh yeah, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. and then now when I watch it later, like like those moments happen and I'm like, yeah, this is 90s. This is 90s. But like the action still holds up, honestly. Like, yeah, it's overdone, but once you accept that's the meal that you have, you can really enjoy it, I think. Because I was loving all the action, whether it was them flying across the room, just like defying gravity. It's a computer program, like, why can't they do that?
He just has cheat codes. Like, that's what
he
Morpheus
just has
says.
cheat codes.
Like,
Exactly.
That's where it's like, this is the world. Like, that's the best way they describe it. The agents, like, they live in this little box, but you can bend it. That's always the way I've looked at the Matrix, is he has cheat codes, and that's why he can just stomp on people.
And I think a lot of those ideas are what maybe when I was younger I didn't understand, like, at all. The fact that it is a program or something like this, and the agents have, like what you just said, their set of rules, but like you can just go beyond them. And there's a great line when I think they're fighting originally, and Neo is like, you're saying I can dodge bullets, and Morpheus is like, I'm telling you, you won't even have to. And like, I didn't really understand that until like a watch a few watches ago, of like, it's so true. Like, when he just like learns like the formula, for lack of a better term, like he can just bypass it, and that's essentially what he does, right? Like at the end, when he just stops all the bullets, and then he just like jumps into the agent and explodes them, and like he's literally God mode at that point.
He bodies him.
He destroys him.
Well, he actually literally does body him. But like, yeah, and I think that's a good example of, like, because the very first time when Neo's talked about, or they talked to him about the agents, they're like, if you ever come across the agent, just run, because they will kill you, they'll take you out. So it shows like how scary they are at the beginning of the film, to in the middle when Morpheus and Keanu I always call him Keanu, but Morpheus and Neo fight the agents, and Morpheus tries really hard but still gets bested, and Neo, like, they kind of come to a standstill. Then to jump to the end, when he's literally, that moment I love, when he's just like not even looking at Agent Smith, and he's just blocking him with one hand, and it's just like Agent Smith can literally do nothing. And it shows like a great progression of, something that was so scary at the beginning to now it's so minute. It's one of those funny things where they don't think about, because in the sequel, Agent Smith is back, and like, okay, well, now we got to make, like, how do we make Agent Smith like a threat? Because, and I feel like they kind of forget some of those in sequels, because I'm like, why does Neo not just body these people all the time? It's like, oh, they found a way to get stronger. It's like, okay, sure. But yeah, in this movie, I think it's perfect trajectory for like the agents and like what Neo is figuring out with them.
Absolutely. One of my favorite scenes, I have very many favorite scenes in this movie, but one of my favorite, like, I guess, lead into an action scene is when Trinity goes through the phone and then, like, Agent Smith's there. And then Neo's about to run and then he just, like, turns around. They're like, what is he doing? Morpheus, he's starting to believe. And it's just like, oh my God, I get, like, chills still to this day with that moment. Like, it's just so epic. And I know I understand the Chosen One like story isn't for everyone. It's definitely overdone at this point, I would say. But I guess you brought up the example of Dune. They did a really good job
well,
there.
we got a good break, I think, for a while. Like other than
Yeah.
Dune, like I think they're smart in the Star Wars trilogy. Out of all the mistakes they didn't tiptoe around like, oh, is Rey the one? Like I feel like,
Yeah.
especially because we got Phantom Menace, and I think too, because Revenge of the Sith was 2005, right? And that was all about the Chosen One, stuff like that. And I'd have to think, like, I feel like there's lots of failed movies that had Chosen Ones, but any good ones, I feel like people kind of, like, we didn't get that in any comic books or anything like that. We got that a little
Yeah.
bit in Lord of the Rings with Aragorn, but really, I feel like, I guess the last time it was there was probably Harry Potter, I guess, with Deathly Hallows. And I feel like that was, so I guess I'm kind of wrong. But even then, if you think about when I was saying, like, Matrix was kind of the end of that, you look at Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Harry Potter, those all started within 3 years of the Matrix, 2001, 2000. So it's like, even Harry Potter, like, true, okay, in 2012, they're still talking about the Chosen One. It's like, well, that was the plot line in 2001, so they have to carry that out, right? So I'm going to maybe have to do a deep dive and see, like, what tried. Because I
Yeah.
feel like anything
There's-
after that tried it, people rejected. Like, I don't want this
There's
anymore.
probably so many trash films too that we're forgetting about that had that.
100%.
Like the one that comes to mind is the Aragorn like book
Yep.
movie where it's like I guess he's a he's a chosen one there. But quickly something I want to mention before I forget it is just like getting back to the dude bro and like the deep philosophical thinking of this movie. I think when I was younger, the more memorable moments were those dude bro moments, and then now that I'm older, like I really think about like the deep thinking of this movie. And that's what's so magical about it is that you can take so many things from it. And I think for me personally, that's why I think it just stands the test of time, because I just think about this movie in different ways throughout my life. And like just some of the philosophical questions, like you mentioned the Cypher moment when I think you mentioned that moment. But anyways, when he's having dinner with
choosing to go back. Yeah, he's gonna
yeah,
be a double
and he's
agent, yeah.
having dinner. Like me and my dad still quote that when like he's having dinner with Agent Smith, and he's like, "I understand that the steak like isn't real, but like, God, it tastes great." You know, and like that. Then in that moment, he's just choosing to be ignorant, and I don't think that's like an unreasonable way of thinking in that moment, right? Like when you've seen behind the curtain of how fucked up it is, of just like literally just like humans being harvested to just power like be batteries just to power these robots. It's such a grim thing, and like there's probably theorists out there right now, they're like, is that what we are we just brains in jars? How would we know, you know? And it's really interesting seeing this movie from 1999 that was the main concept of the movie, and then here in 2021 people are like, is this possible? And like you have probability scientists that are like, it's actually more reasonable that we would be in a simulation. I don't know.
Let's not think about that. Let's take our first.
But this is so
ad.
fun, so
Travis
why would it
is
matter?
he's gonna stay and have the steak. That's Travis.
No,
Yeah.
that is the.
Why would it matter though? You have your
let's take our-
family, everyone's happy, everyone's good. Yeah, it's
Let's take our ad break
Until-
and then we get into it more. Yeah. Hang on. So we'll take an ad break and we'll be right back. And we're back. And that. Go ahead.
Until Travis is like in the warehouse, and then he gets a phone call, and he's like, "There's two agents on your way. You need to duck down and go into the warehouse across from you. It's empty."
Well, that's what would be so tricky. Like, imagine if Neo had like a family in that scene. Would he actually just like that? Would be a completely different movie.
Well, I think when he sees like his former wife morph into Agent Smith, it'd be a bit of a
His
realization.
former wife.
Well, if he was
saying
married
if.
in that
Yeah.
movie,
Oh,
in the
I see
Matrix,
what you're
and then she
saying.
morphs into Agent Smith.
I think that's again how I
Like,
was talking
ooh,
about
here we go.
before, and this is why I probably initially really liked the idea and liked the movie with Inception. It's the same thing with Leo, right? At the end of that movie. Now, in my opinion, it's completely proven that Leo is not a dream. They talk about the ring being the totem. I believe that theory, and I think they've kind of already said that. But if you want to play it the movie way, it's at that point Nolan says the reason he doesn't look at the ring tumble is because he doesn't even care if those kids are real or not. So it's like those kids could be
It's the
completely
steak
fake.
thing, right?
Yeah, but Leo is completely at the point where he's been through so much shit, he just doesn't care, and he's gonna live this dream out or this life out and just go. And I think that is a tough thing because like you would be, and I feel like people make those choices all the time, but with little scenarios in life, right? Nothing as big as this. Maybe some people do have this as something as big, but there's all the time where you may know a certain truth, but you're going to lie to yourself or deny it because it works better for whether it's your narrative or your life or something like that. So I think this is like it to the nth degree of, hey, literally you're in a world ending situation, but he also feels kind of slighted because he says, he's like, Morbius lied to us. He didn't tell us what he was going to show us and everything like that. And
Yeah.
I think it's great because like we'll get into it later on, but it's like a good contrast too with Agent Smith and his character of like, they hit up that point too where yes it's a program, it's very big, but they almost hit up the point too of like AI evolving and becoming something else, and that's what Agent Smith is, where everyone else is just like this little just file of like you're gonna do this. He's slowly starting, it's the smell, to realize there's more to this and I want fucking out. But Taylor, I was gonna hit you with some of these that I wanted to is the Maze Runner a chosen one movie? I've never seen a single Maze Runner movie.
I would definitely say it's a chosen one.
So that was 2014, but I still feel it's like lower tier. Kung Fu Panda. It's
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's the Dragon Warrior. Come on.
2008.
How to Train Your Dragon's probably in that mix too.
It could
honestly,
be.
Hiccup.
This is from Screen Rack. I don't know. I've not seen enough Avatar. Like, I don't remember there being a chosen one. I know Jake Sully's like the guy, but I don't remember there being a chosen one.
I could
aspect
see
to
him
it.
be classified.
Is there like
as
a
that.
prophecy that they talk about how there's gonna be like a
Maybe.
There's
skinwalker?
like a skinwalker. What in
Skinwalker.
Avatar?
Is that what they're called? What are they called?
The Navi.
The Navi. No, but
The
like, what's it called when they're like like a human? They have a term for them,
Like the-
like a human in the blue guy. A Dreamwalker. I think that's what they're called. Dreamwalker.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I'll have to. Well, we'll be retroing it next year, so we'll get to it. Harry
Yeah.
Potter, we talked about that already. The Lego Movie, yeah, they're right. They had that chosen one aspect. Terminator, well, yeah, that's also in the most John Connor. And I guess we got all the sequels. Matrix came up. Hunger Games. Yeah,
So you're saying there's a
no.
chosen one in every year?
Yeah, Lord of the Rings, and then obviously Star Wars. But like, really, that's the top 10 ones, and those to me are the ones that like broke through in the past like 2 decades. It's like that's not too many when you look at them. I think like Kirklin said, there's lots of bad movies or lower tier movies that did that kind of like watered it down and everything like that. But Taylor, where do you want to take us? Because me and Kirklin have been popping off. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about Cypher? You want to talk about Smith? You want to talk about your
Let's talk about the
theories?
lady in the red dress. That's what he wants to talk about.
Ooh. Before I shift us to our next topic, I think you made a great point I wanted to touch upon, Kirkland, was just the world of the Matrix and just, you know, the probability, science, all that kind of stuff. I just think it's very fascinating how one of the things Morbius is trying to instill into Neo is the fact that, hey, you can look at this scenario of trying to, you know, try to beat me, try to land a hit on me, but don't think you can, like, no, you can. I think that
Don't
is,
try to hit me is what he said.
yeah, like
Yeah.
there's so much of that you can apply to real life in the sense where you get into certain situations where you will just easily like pull through, like, and everything kind of just falls into place, and it's just you in this moment, and you land, you get right through. As other times where you can get nervous, you think you're going to or whatnot, and there can be mistakes that happen, you can mess up. But I think that lesson that he's instilling in Neo is so well defined when it gets to the point where he knows he can just stop these bullets by putting his hand out.
Like
Yes,
a wise
Kirkland.
Jedi once said, there is no try, there's only do.
Exactly.
Or do or do not, there's only try.
Exactly.
I screwed
There
that
you
one
go.
up.
Kirkland's not the wise Jedi. that he
No,
was
I am
referring
still
to,
an
no.
apprentice.
But yeah, speaking of the lady in red, lady in the red dress, I think that was a great scene as well when she first pops up and Neo just is totally caught by her, and then Agent Smith just pops up. I think it's a great way of just instilling, hey, be aware of your surroundings, but don't let the distraction totally encapsulate you because you'll die. And again, his questions that he's kind of throwing out throughout his adventure, I appreciate, because they're questions that we would have as viewers. And I like when we get that kind of, that it's a running kind of theme with some of these movies where, hey, your main character's experiencing all this the first time. It's kind of like your guide to entering into this world and this realm. And he asks the right questions just to kind of piggyback on. And it isn't, you don't need a lot of exposition. It's just simple yes, no. Like, so if I die in the Matrix, do I die in real life? It's like, yeah. Morbius gives him the black and white answer, doesn't sugarcoat it. So I like stuff like that. I like, again, Trinity's kind of obsession with him, which obviously pays off at the end when she resuscitates him through the power of love. But yeah.
Abrupt ending. Okay, just with the
Parallel.
lady in the red dress thing. I feel like this previous like watch, I didn't realize just like how fucking hilarious the character of Mouse is, and he's just so grimy. He's just like using this lady in the red dress. He's like, I can boot her up for you
Oh
if
yeah,
you want.
he's just
I've
like
taken her for a spin.
every night they look over at Mouse in his chair, and he's just like his body's shaking because he's fucking the woman
He's
in the red
Norman.
dress.
Norman in the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. But like, yeah, it's he's such like a skeevy sort of character, and whatnot.
But why would they let him take the magazine? They're in the Matrix doing going to see the Oracle. It's crazy, and they're like go-to at home base
yeah.
is sitting in the chair like with his little magazine.
He's a dirty
Lady in
little
the
fuck.
red.
That's what he is. Yeah.
But at the same time, I like that. I feel like they all are kind of. They aren't all skeevy, but they don't seem untrustworthy, but they're definitely a little like off kilter because they've just been together for a little bit. Now, it's different because like the sequel set up like, oh no, there's hundreds of people out there. But in this movie, it just feels very claustrophobic. Like there's these 6 people that have been together for, how long together, and it's just them. And I think that kind of makes it feel like why Cypher would want to leave, why Mouse is just kind of resorting to anything to just get by in a day and things like that. And thoughts of the other characters don't really have much of a personality. They're just kind of there to be like, oh, there are guys. Like the most people that have personalities, like honestly, it's Morbius, and kind of funny enough, I feel it's almost Mr. Smith or Agent Smith, because even Trinity,
Morpheus.
I think she's
Not Morbius. That's in January.
No, he was in there. He's no.
Was he?
Jared Leto would have been perfect in Matrix movies, not gonna lie. But yeah, Morpheus and Agent Smith, I feel like almost have the most character. Because Trinity's whole thing is just, again, it's like, oh, there's a prophecy that I will fall in love with the one. Is this the guy and stuff like that? So I wouldn't necessarily say she's obsessed, Taylor. I think she's just more like questioning all the time, like really looking at him, not because she's obsessed, just being like, okay, if this guy is the one, then I'm gonna be falling in love with him. And then it's the reverse of when she does fall in love with him and she gets the info that he's not the one. She's like, well, that doesn't make sense, because clearly she's starting to fall in love with him, but the process is you're not supposed to fall in love with the guy that's not the one. Again, as like not even a minor complaint, but just like they've like for falling in love, like I feel like they have like a few conversations. It's more just like a physical I can believe you guys want to bone, but the fact that you're already in love, like, oh, here we go. But I don't. So I wouldn't say she's obsessed. I think she's just trying to inspect it. Like she's just watching his every move. Like, is this the guy? Obviously, who's this guy?
Well,
is the one? But is this guy I'm gonna fall in love with as well?
You got to imagine that prophecy's in her head anytime that she's getting googly eyes with anyone, right?
Yeah.
Like especially like that's such
That'd
a
fuck you
major
up.
bomb to drop. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And just since we're talking about Trinity, I absolutely love her character. Like, still, I feel like initially when I first watched it, it was like, okay, this attractive lady that's just kicking ass and like a super powerful like heroine. Like, I just think she was such a great character back then. But like, and like now, maybe I'm over like the the tight leather outfits and like not over the kicking ass
yet.
part, but just like seeing her, maybe objectifying her
Oh yeah,
improperly.
she's definitely an object back then. in the
Yeah, but like
90s.
now I'm like really focusing on like the story elements and like the inner battles that she's fighting within herself. What we were just talking about, how like just having that prophecy in your head that like you're gonna fall in love with the one, like that is such a major cloud in your mind, and you can see that emotion that she's hiding in the certain scenes. Like there's moments when it seems like she wants to tell Neo some information, but she just holds her tongue. And I think, I mean, when I was younger, obviously I would have missed that. But like, even if I were to watch this for the first time, maybe I would have missed some of that. But now that I just know that that's what the prophecy with her, I'm like looking for that in particular scenes, and she just does such a good job at like holding her tongue in certain instances where she wants to possibly reveal some information. But if she does that, it might change things, right? And I absolutely love her character in this. She is someone that I am so excited for in Resurrections, because I think she's going to be, again, a major role in that. We've speculated if she's going to be a possible new Chosen One or something like that, but she's just such a great character. And like I said, like just like little Kirklin back in the day, it's like, whoa, who is this? Who is this female that's just absolutely kicking ass here and looking fine while she's doing it?
Well, it's funny, and that's where like I'll shout him out. He gave us the great Spider-Man rated R clip, and I was kind of thinking this similarly, but he had put it out as a tweet, so I was like, okay, so I'm not
Yeah,
alone.
I saw that tweet as well.
From who?
Tim Rooney.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if you knew where I was going, but his theory was by the end of Resurrections that they may be combined and as one. Now, for a sequel, I'm like, I don't know how that fucking works at all, because if you're one character, it doesn't make sense. But that would make a lot of sense where we talk about this a bit on news, where you like, that's why this movie's so great. You got the action, dude, bro, like fun. We're gonna shoot him up. And we'll talk about all that, and then you got the heady like science based computer stuff. But then you do have now, especially with like, that's where exciting for Resurrection, you have this personal journey of the directors who have both now, when they directed this, they were the Wachowski brothers. Now they're Wachowski sisters. They both came out as transgender and stuff like that. And they had said that, like, okay, we had quietly, and that's many people that have either dealt with racism or dealt with, you know, sexism, stuff like that, or battle against their sexual orientation. Lots of their works have been like quietly about that. And when you look at like at its core, it's like, oh yeah, it's Neo figuring out like a computer world and all this stuff. But to me, it's almost like, no, Neo actually hasn't really lived at all, because he's been in this like shell of himself. And when he gets to this other world, I think it's the same way as like, yeah, when they probably came out as transgender, it was super hard, and they probably lost a lot of people. There's a lot of people that probably made jokes about them, belittled them, almost the same way as Neo. Like when he goes to the real world, that fucking world sucks. It's not a good world. The food tastes like shit. He has like 5 pairs of clothes that he has. Like everyone's looking crappy. Like that ship looks cold and sweaty at the same time, which is not good. But it's like it's very well done, and that's where it's very interesting. Like you can see once you found that out about the directors, like their personal battle with that. You can see that in the movie, and that's where the Resurrection is going to be very interesting. But it's just like I said, there's just this movie now. It feels like almost every year it like gets more meaning. And I was reading, I don't know if I put this in the trivia, but they specifically in the Matrix world, they would put Neo in very loose fitting clothes because they never wanted to make it feel like he fit in the world. So the clothes was like a shell of that, where it's like everything, baggy sweater, stuff like that, where it's just like it just didn't quite fit. Like he didn't quite fit because obviously he's the one and all that stuff. And I really like that, and it's so interesting too. And I watched this again now. This I'm like, okay, we're gonna review it. How fast we actually get into it. We get that action scene with Trinity, and then right away we meet Neo. But it's not like, oh, here's gonna be 15 minutes of Neo. It's Neo gets a call from someone creepy. They said follow the white rabbit. He follows the white rabbit. Like we get into like it's, I can't remember. It's what, probably it's like 220 or something like this movie. But one, I should have said this overall, is the runtime just flies by. Like it just at warp speed is really fast, but we just jump right into it. And I think that's probably smart because there's lots of exposition and things to learn, but it just doesn't feel like it wastes a minute, because the second it feels like you're gonna cool down, he's at work, no, the agents are there and they're sucking his mouth up and stuff. So I was always surprised that, man, this movie just goes into it right away, and I love that about it, because it doesn't feel, it feels nonstop, but it does take its breather at time to time, so it doesn't feel overwhelming.
Absolutely, it's 2.5 actually, so it's a good length of a movie, honestly. And just the pacing, I don't think it drags on. Maybe like briefly near the end, it's a little bit slower, but like now when I watch it, I'm just in all the way. And I think what you shouted out there is just like the beginning, how it gets right into it. I think it kind of caught me by surprise. I'm like, I thought there was like some slower stuff leading into it, but no, we get right into it. And I absolutely love like the opening, you know, phenomenal action sequence. And then just even after that with Thomas Anderson, like in the real world, which is the Matrix. Something that I just like, all of that's great, but something I want to just shout out is just like the usage of like the play on Alice in Wonderland, and how like it comes up so many times with the White Rabbit, with Morpheus asking him if he wants to, you know, just stay in
Alice falling down the rabbit hole. You know?
Yeah. Do you ever feel like that? And then when he's giving him the pills, it's like, do you want to stay in Wonderland or see how deep the rabbit hole goes? And
rabbit hole goals.
I think it's so fun, like the play on that story, because that story in and of itself is so fucking wacky, and it fits so well in a movie like this.
100%.
Just
and
like,
Resurrections has a song that's all about, like the trailer has it all about Alice in Wonderland. So it's very much a theme of like what's real and what is it. Unfortunately for Neo, like Alice, you can debate, oh, maybe it was a dream. Not a dream.
Not
for
at
Neo.
all.
No.
And I mean, something that I wasn't fully aware of like what you mentioned, how like there's a lot of just possibly, I don't know what's the best word,
sexual
to
orientation
use. Yeah, and just like the directors like translating their own struggles into what this movie is, and just like a lot of challenges, and like the way that it translates to the movie. It's, again, because I wasn't aware of it, I'm just like, yeah, Matrix is great. But then when you learn about those things, it just makes it so much more special. because I like obviously, did they write this as well? Wrote and direct?
I believe so.
I
yeah.
believe, yeah.
I think their names are all
So
over it. But
it
I'll
just
fact
goes
check.
to show like how much better this probably is because they put
Actually,
their
they did
own.
because I was telling you that story
Yeah.
earlier when they were pitching it to studios and like, yeah, we're not
Yes.
going to pay you
Okay.
this amount.
Yeah, so it obviously when you write and direct a movie, it's coming from your heart, it's coming from your own being, but like when it's something so tied to like that, like actually having something internally that you're uncomfortable or possibly just uncomfortable revealing, and when it does come out, it just makes it so much more powerful and better. And
Well, and
I'm losing words here, but
it's
yeah.
something of like it's funny like in the movie how they talk about the chicken and the egg. It's two scenarios where I think it's the latter, but it's either one that they wrote this movie and you kind of unintentionally do it because it's just like you're pulling from your life. I think
Yeah.
it is intentional, but I think that's what you had to kind of do back then. Where now we have something like Captain America or Falcon Winter Soldier, right? I'm not saying that's the fucking be all end all that ends racism, but you have this moment where Sam talks to the press about racism and being a black man being Captain America, right? In this time period and before, you got to jump around it. That's why I Plan the Apes. It's about oh yeah, man lands on a planet and he has to deal with these monkeys that take him over. But really, it's about racism and it's about man, what if it was the other side? What if the Plan the Apes with the time jump, they use that to use this as the African American black experience as far as if it was switched. Imagine if you're a white guy and it was switched and you went through all these trials and tribulations, but they didn't say that like right away to be like, oh, this is a movie about racism and like how we were really wrong back then and like imagine that. No, they had to like, and movies still do that, but I feel like now you can be a bit more open or have conversations where back then you couldn't, so you almost had to hide like these themes. And exactly like you said, we didn't know the directors had some of this stuff going on where they felt like uncomfortable in their bodies. So to see it now later on, again, this movie just like gets more and more, and that's the best art, right? Of course, like I'm not saying I'm not saying the people that go make I don't know, Small Soldiers back in the day had to make it this is everything in my heart. No, movies can be fun and a good time, but that's usually the best art is when a writer or director has pouring even the smidgen of themselves into the work, and clearly it's all
Yeah.
over this.
Absolutely.
Taylor, where do you want to
Taylor.
go next?
Oh
You're
my
steering the ship
gosh.
today, Boyle.
Yeah. Wouldn't mind going more into the agents because we got three different ones here, and again we'll get into discussion more about Agent Smith in the later ones because he goes through some major developments. But
Do they always have
becomes-
names? Sorry to interrupt you here, but I've never known like other names other than Agent Smith. like they must
think
be
they do,
casted
but
as
yeah.
some sort of name. They don't ever really say them. It's just Agent
they're
Smith
not
is the more
ones.
iconic one. You got Hugo
Agent
Weaving.
Brown, Agent Smith, Agent Jones.
That's why I like when Taylor's like, let's talk about those first two first. I'm like, oh really? Like, I don't even know their names. I don't know.
Agent Brown and Agent Jones.
Well, how do you
So-
feel about them functioning, the agents in general, Taylor? That kind of because they're kind of like the protective guidelines of the world, right? Like they gotta keep everyone in check. If anything's going wrong, they gotta hunt them down. They're looking for Morpheus, which I laughed to that we got a Mobius now too. We got so many people with these names, but they're looking for Morpheus. So they got their agenda and plans.
Yeah,
and
well,
whatnot.
they're the Matrix police force basically for the machines, which I think is very cool as a concept, and I like that they do well. At least Smith becomes self-aware. I think that whole scene of him taking his glasses off, like one-on-oneing with Morpheus, and just like saying this is what's going to happen. I think it's very, very powerful because I do believe that if you code an artificial intelligence and it's going to learn. I think that's just a foundation of anything that has a sort of like a self-awareness of itself. It's going to learn, it's going to grow, and it's going to rewrite itself. As anything would. It's literally the human brain and what we do as we evolve. And for Smith's development, I think that's a great segue because I don't know at the time if you, let's say it's 1999, just go out of the theater, The Matrix, you probably don't know if you're going to get a second one or not. I probably have like a hunch, but it didn't really end on a massive cliffhanger that you would suspect, like, hey, we're going to get like a trilogy. But it was enough that it had these little, not necessarily Easter eggs, but these little key moments where you can think, okay, like if they do a sequel, there's a lot to work with because Agent Smith, he has a lot more to him than just being this program. He's trying to get out. He's seen, you could say, like what's beyond, and he wants more. And he knows Morpheus can give it to him. He knows that there's a lot more opportunity for him out there. And I can't remember what he does to Brown and Jones, but I'm curious. I think he probably like absorbs them or something like that.
I think they just run. Actually, I'm pretty sure I thought that's what happened because when Neo jumps into Agent Smith's body.
Oh, I meant like in the later movies, what happens to them?
Oh yeah, I think they're just kind of around. The agents kind of get replaced by multiple Agent Smiths and stuff like that. So they kind of get taken over. But yeah, because I think I absolutely love like Agent Smith's progression in this whole movie. One thing I do gotta note though, because I know we'll talk about Smith, and I don't want to forget about this. When on newscast we're debating about Miles Morales and Spider-Verse and the big cliffhanger, this to me is the difference of a perfectly ended movie that leaves more open, and then Spider-Verse, which I hate, the whole like, hey Miles, come look at this. It's like, oh, you have to get more. In this way, the movie ends. You don't have to get more because they kind of leave it of like Neo phoning them, saying, "I know you're out there, I know you're watching, and I'm kind of like I'm looking forward to it, and I'm gonna change everything and stuff like that." You literally can end the movie and never see another one, and just assume, okay, because Neo got so OP, he just changed everything. Like he slowly picked apart the Matrix, agent by agent, piece by piece, and that's what they try and do in the sequels and stuff like that. Obviously, some problems arise, but that's where I like that it's open, but it still could be closed. Like you don't necessarily need to see that. So I love that ending, and I love too like they leave that they're smart because they weren't sure how it was going to look in 1999. They saved the Superman flying shot to the very end when he just flies because like they have the jumping, but this was like holy shit. It's just like. Again, end the movie on another like super cool moment, but Agent this was definitely it's tough talking about chicken or egg. Like I just don't know the timeline of when I saw Matrix really for the first time, so I just feel like I feel like this and Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Ring are like tied together, like they're just so close, but. That was such a like I always feel like I saw or at least had more memory of maybe it was a situation of I had seen them both, and then there was Elrond and Agent Smith, and I feel like I'd felt they were the same person like later on, where I was like, oh shit, that's the same guy. And then so I was like, Hugo Weaving is a really good actor because that role of Agent Smith could be played so boring and you couldn't care about it. Because even early on, when he's just Agent Smith doing his mission, like he has a pronunciation, but there's just something Hugo Weaving does with the way he moves, his little facial twitch. You get curious about Agent Smith, and in a poor actor's hands, you could make that character very boring, very generic, very bad Terminator-esque, because it is very Terminator-like, right? But as the movie goes on, like he gets more personality, he has like little like fun quips and stuff like that. He has a great little dynamic with Mr. Anderson, and like he's just always using that to like push him down, like just to remember who you were in this. You were just some guy who lived in a shitty apartment who was like a coder, right? Like you may think you're the one and stuff like that, but you're not. But his standout scene is probably the same thing when you guys would say is like his scene with Morpheus at the end when he takes off his glasses, and just even that look, because he doesn't take off his glasses when he takes off his glasses and he starts to talk about like what would happen with people, and they go and colonize an area, and then when they run out of the resources they go somewhere else. He's like, it sounds like a virus, and then he starts to talk about how humans are a virus. And it's funny, in this moment of course you're cheering for the humans and everything like that, but when they scriptwriters make the comparison of human life and then compare it exactly to a virus, you're like, fuck, like from his perspective he got a point. Like I see why they're trying to do it, because they feel like humans are like ruining the world, and that's a good flavor. Like I never agree with him, but it's just like that's great. And just how he starts describing the smell, and he just like he doesn't even want to, like he wants to complete the mission, but he doesn't care about the mission. He just wants out. He just wants to go beyond it. It's so funny because like that's what the other like Morpheus and Agent Smith kind of have the same goal, right? They both want out of the Matrix. They just have very different ways of having to get it. So he's such an interesting character. And I think he's one of the things that when we get in the sequels, he does, I won't say save the sequels because I do like them, but I feel like he continues to be the most interesting thing where other things kind of get a little watered down. But he's a very fascinating character that I think they just hit a home run with Agent Smith.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. I absolutely love the character. I think like just the agents in general, like they're just such a great role in these types of movies because again they just like they're basically just men in black, right? Like that like ominous like agent, in the black suit. They come to just take care of troublemakers. And it's just such a great twist to have it as like an AI, and this is just like I don't know what it would be, like almost like an antivirus, especially if he's calling humans viruses. Like their goal is to just hunt them down, get rid of them, and like that's it. And I just love like how they're basically like Superman until
Yes.
Neo, unlocks some cheat codes. But like they're just, and like we talked about it earlier, how like in the beginning of the movie and for the majority of the movie, they do such a good job at like distinguishing them from like a regular threat of like a cop, that like,
Oh yeah.
okay, we saw Trinity just dismantle all of them here, and then like a single agent shows up, and like it's enough to just make this person that took down this entire squad of police just run for their lives, and just like, yeah, like they're just so imposing. So like that's just like the agents in general. But when you get to Agent Smith, there's so many more layers to him that makes it so interesting. And because like, yeah, with the agents, they have, like, Travis, you said it, like they're basically a file, like this is their purpose. They don't think about what color the sky is. They think about, okay, where's Morpheus, we got to get rid of him, like that is my duty. But then when you get to something like that scene with Agent Smith and Morpheus, like there's just so much more to him and so much more depth to the character. And like I'm excited to see what he's like in the next two movies. And I mean, Hugo Weaving won't be Agent Smith in the next one, but just like what the character of Agent Smith is.
He might be
What
around.
are you gonna say? He might be
Yeah, he
around.
might be
You think so?
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
A
know.
61-year-old man running around
No,
kicking
I
ass.
don't. I don't think Agent Smith will be around. I think the same way how we have Morbius has found a way to resurrect, and Neo and
Morpheus.
Trinity. Fuck, Morpheus has found a way. Like if any fucking file's gonna find a way to sneak their way back in, it's Mr. Smith. And it's just especially
Yeah.
because we're getting those in those trailers, those deja vu shots of. It's Jonathan Gruff, who's from Mindhunter, phenomenal TV show. Better get season 3. He actually voices, oh man, he's the guy in Frozen. He's the more butch lumberjack guy who's in love with Anna. Oh, my daughters would kill me.
Oh, yeah, I'm blanking. Damn, I
Taylor,
actually
you
like
don't
those
know
movies too.
what's his name?
I'm not
Christoph.
Frozen
There you
aficionado.
go.
Christoph, yeah, that was his big claim to fame. But just that shot of the trailer, and it's like a slice of him and Agent Smith saying "Mr. Anderson," and it's just like, okay, like they're hitting that up for some sort of reason. So I'd be very interested. Like
Yeah.
the same way, like I said, that what's his name? Yaya is playing like another Morpheus. I think the way to me they're pitching it is that you could die and then you're gonna get like resurrected. That's why when people are like, oh, why is there not a Morpheus? Well, it's like because this is like young Morpheus, right? I did it. I caught it. We're like Neo and Trinity because they died earlier on. Maybe there's a whole to me I think theory that they're gonna go with. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Smith he'll definitely
Yeah.
have some presence in the movie. I feel like I don't know, even if it would be like in an Arnim Zola way, Winter Soldier, where like he was like left as a file and he like warned our heroes. I could even see Agent Smith
Yeah.
in that sort of route of like. But I can't even remember specifically. I know he gets defeated, but I don't know if it's like even then, look at this movie. He got fucking Neil went into his body and got split apart and like his file was destroyed, but he
Yeah.
comes back in the very next movie. So as Luke Skywalker said, no one's ever really gone,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Agent Smith will be around. But just getting back to his role in this movie, it just makes him so much more interesting than just like an imposing threat of like, I need to get out of here. It's the smell. And like he's just losing his shit. Like he just needs to get out of this. And it's so interesting thinking of like literally a robot, a computer is just like having these thoughts. Like he's literally artificial intelligence. He even drops the line that they're like evolving. I love the dialogue of him just calling humans a virus. And that's another thing that I feel like is just so much more relevant today because like humans are just expanding and getting, I'm not going to say worse, but just more toxic to each other and to their environment. And like it's one of those lines that just stands the test of time. But I think something that I always found really interesting is when like Agent Brown and Agent Jones, I think that's his name. The other two guys, they come in and they're like, "What were you doing?"
His glasses off, his
These
earpiece
guys
up.
yeah, it's just like so like this does not
It's
compute
foreign
from
to
their
them.
eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to see someone
exactly.
going off like that,
And then
like,
the other
having
one's just like he
acting
doesn't
emotions.
know because he didn't have his earpiece in. He had no idea what was going on. Neo and Trinity are kicking absolute ass in the lobby.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, like Hugo Weaving, absolutely love him. So it's just it's one of those pitch perfect casting in my mind. I can never picture Agent Brown or Agent Jones multiplying into all the different ones. Like I can't remember if it's the second or third movie, but I'm excited to get to that scene when we. That's like one scene that I remember from those later ones.
Neo
It's just
versus
so
like
iconic.
10,000 Agent Smiths. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
it's
another
pretty
one where
epic.
like I swear I've seen it like animated from like Stickman, like recreating that scene. Like it's just The Matrix is just like such an important movie for
Mhm.
creators, I guess, animators, different things like that. But no, Agent Smith, absolutely phenomenal villain, and yeah, he was great.
Well, let's take our second ad break, and then we'll be right back into the Matrix. And we're back. Taylor, did you have anything to add on Agent Smith? I know you kind of opened it up, but was there anything lasting on him?
No, I'll close up my thoughts with it just being, I think he's a very interesting and bold character just to tackle again for the 90s. I think that whole era as well, the whole generation diving into such a thing like coding and internet, like it's still a pretty new, prominent, up and coming thing. Like with the internet, like it's definitely, obviously it's nowhere what it is now, what it was back then, but it's just it left up to like the beauty of the mind's beholder, whatever the fuck you say that sentence, whatever people could dream up of what it could be, because there were so many possibilities.
In the
what
eye of
internet
the
could be.
beholder, I think
That's
is what
the
you're
one.
looking
Yeah,
for,
yeah. In the eye of the beholder of what it could be like with the internet, and I think the Matrix did a great job at aiming with AI programs and coding and everything of what it could eventually like, what this road is that we're going down with internet and everything like that. And I mean, sure enough, we got VR these days, like a little Matrix. You can go into rooms and stuff with other people walking around, and eventually
VR
there'll
porn.
be what's that?
You got VR porn, you get your
Yeah,
own
ton
red
of Smiths
dress room.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. You like that, Mr. Anderson. Just, where to next? Actually, I want to just say this because not that I would forget, but I just want to say that no matter how many times I see it, how years it's been, the lobby scene every time is still like that's where you want to tell the dude bro like hype moments like that. The whole movie's great and I love the heady stuff, but when we get to that lobby scene, man, it just holds up and it's just so badass from them in the white room and they get all the guns and they slowly walk in and Neo just puts this huge duffel bag of just like a bunch of guns and just everything. Again, talking about the cinematography, the moves in there, the music that plays all the time at fucking laser tag if you go into it nowadays. But yeah, it's just like, man, what a great set piece from everything to that. And then they transition up top with a helicopter, and then they got Agent Smith and Neo, and then obviously when Neo becomes the one, like that whole third act is just nonstop, but in the best way. It's just like rising, actually getting bigger and bigger. But that lobby, man, that once that music kicks in, you sit out of your chair. And because I always wonder, like, oh, is there gonna be a time? Because I've seen it so many times, like it's not gonna get me, and it does all the time. It's very similar to Dark Knight. There's just scenes where it's just like, oh, when Joker's running after Harvey Dent in the big truck and Batmobile's around, like it's not gonna get me. It's like, oh no, it still is that magic. So that lobby scene, everything is just, again, a pitch perfect action scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else to add if we're going another action sequence. I mean, just the training sequence with him and Morpheus. I think that's so great. I love when I forget who it is, but they're like in the break room and it's like Neo's fighting Morpheus, and then they all just like stop what they're doing, have to go see this, just because there's so much reputation about what Neo could be, and then just to see them like taking on their fearless leader Morpheus, it's such an epic scene, and I love. Like even before that, like the training sequence that Neo goes through, and then he thinks he's tough shit, and he's like, "I know kung fu, show me." And then Morpheus just humbles him, and it's just so great. Great music in it. The action, again, it's a little over the top, but it's perfect for a movie like this.
And Neo, not like, I guess that's the point. Like, yeah, of course he learns fast, but like Morpheus humbles him. But then by the end of that scene, Neo's starting to kick his ass. So it's that one of the things that I'm fine with.
He's the one, man. He's the chosen one.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those like MacGuffin or just like easy writables. Just like, oh yeah, he's the one. That's what he does. So it's just like, yeah, I wish you could see him struggle a little bit more, but it doesn't. Like, I like where we end up. So at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt me too much. But it is one of those things where like we move, like obviously it's just like Neo through like massive speed. He's so fast. Like we move so fast into like getting into that point. But I think it's warranted because they got to get him back in the Matrix, right? And they got to go on this mission and they got to explain what deja vu is, which is a great moment and stuff like that. So.
No, absolutely. And then just like the tail end of the train sequence when they do the jump,
Mm-hmm.
literally laughed out loud when Morpheus jumps. It's just like the meme of Neo just, whoa.
Whoa.
Like it's just, I think I've just seen that on too many memes these days. And again, like you said, it's just like the one note Keanu Reeves, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like an ideal type of performance for this role. Just being that a man of few words, maybe that's the best way to describe it.
Well, and I think it's almost like Taylor somewhat earlier. I can't remember the comparison he was talking about. I was talking about this with Empty Vessel. Like he just has to learn all this info. He feels very video gamey in the way where you're a video game main character. If you ever do
Yeah.
like an RPG, create a guy. They don't put too much into him or her because they want you to do that, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
very much him. Now, again, I think it's kind of a happy accident because, again, I don't think they intended that because, like I said before, Will Smith was the guy before they were really going for, and that would not have been that type of Neo. I don't think that would have been like, oh, an open book that you put anything into. I think it's just a happy accident that the writing's kind of like that, but then you also got Keanu Reeves who, like, especially in the 90s, plays things at a very docile, tone, very, some people might say he's a bad actor. I could I wouldn't fight you because like he has like I feel like a Tobey Maguire effect as well where it's just like scenes like he amplifies them by how he reacts. Does it sometimes always match? No, but I think in this one it does because like it fits the way he plays Mr. Anderson, but then when he's Neo, he can pull off, as we've seen also in John Wick, when he wants to be a badass and a cool guy, he can pull it off very well. He's got that down pat.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a funny what if scenario if it actually was Will Smith, in that role, because like you mentioned earlier, it would have just been so different.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm curious, like where Keanu would have been if he didn't get this role. I feel like this really set him on a trajectory. No?
Oh yeah. No, I was gonna
Oh,
say
I thought you were
not-
disagreeing with me.
No. I agree 100%. Not wherever he is now, it would not be because of Matrix. He was definitely starring in movies and stuff like that. But this is one of those like iconic, like he'll be known forever. Like luckily enough for him, he is John Wick now, so he kind of has the Harrison Ford thing going on where you have Han Solo.
Yeah,
and
but
Indiana Jones, but
that's like Matrix without the program, right? Like very
yeah,
similar
yeah.
type role he's playing.
not,
I've actually never seen a John Wick, so
not
maybe
really,
I should
though.
disclaimer
I
that.
was
You
gonna
haven't
say
seen
no,
a John Wick?
I know. Let's retro them one day,
we
boys.
probably will retro them because I've seen the first one, and then it's so funny. There's a review for number 2 that was gonna happen. It's gonna be me, Briggs, Dylan, and Kyle. And this was when the Cineplex just moved to those new seats when there was the recliners, so we didn't anticipate that like because there was less seats it would sell out, so it sold out and we never did it. We just went back to Dylan's place to record Gauntlet. I kicked Tyler Briggs' ass in the age, one of the only people to beat Tyler Briggs in Gauntlet. I pulled that off, but we always went to see that, and ever since then I never saw 2 and I never saw 3. But no, I wouldn't say he has his Keanu-isms, but it's definitely not the same as Neo. I don't think it's, and even like he has the action, but that's almost more about like this is gunplay, but it transitions more into the kung fu, karate, superhumans fighting, where John Wick is purely just like, hey, you like guns, you like, to see that show off, you want a cool shot. That's what John Wick is. But I guarantee you he wouldn't have John Wick with that. And the thing is, I'm just saying that since Matrix, he's definitely been in things, but John Wick is like the biggest franchise he's had since Matrix. For a while, it's just like, okay, he could be Keanu and be in big movies, but Matrix and John Wick, I think, are the different levels there. So,
Yeah.
if that answers your question.
Thank you for answering my question. Do you guys have anything else you want to steer to?
I'm trying to let me check my notes, but I think I hit majority of the stuff that I had for this.
I got one thing we can kind of just briefly talk about here.
Fuck yeah.
How do you guys feel? Because I'm curious on your thoughts of just when Neo wakes up and he's in that like harvesting pod. It's just like the juices are flowing. He's unplugging himself, and it's just so like waking up in that. I don't know how the brain could comprehend such a traumatic thing. Like thinking you are in a room with a bunch of terrorists, and then all of a sudden you're in some dystopian, futuristic life where you like your whole body hurts. You've never used your eyes before. Like I just can't imagine that.
Yeah, I think it's what I said earlier, where when I saw this movie kind of on TV for the first time, I saw like the mouth and everything closing. That's when you go, oh, it's weird. that was something that I think even if I watched on the background, I must have missed it or something like that. Like the very first time I see it, I remember being completely shocked of seeing him wake up in this scenario, almost to the point where it's so outlandish. It feels like it's one of those things in a movie that they do, and then a character wakes up and it's just a dream of like, oh, that could be your reality. But no, it's just like, oh no, this is the reality. These are they're harvesting because what happens was these machines start to come alive and they're solar panel like or solar powered, so they decide they don't really tell us how, I don't know understand how, but they say they get rid of the sun, so the people on Earth
I think they
decide-
use like they like nuke so much or something that it just starts these like radioactive clouds.
yeah
That was like
so
the explanation. I'm like, okay, maybe this doesn't hold up, but whatever. It gets
No,
us
I
to the
don't-
next part of the story.
Yeah, I don't think it does, but so they take that out, so there's no more solar power for these robots. But then what the robots decide, well, they say, "Fuck it, we're gonna use you as the power and just keep harvesting you." So it's like, and like the visuals of that scene when he comes up, he's all bald, he has like the tube in his mouth, and he has all the things in there coming. Like,
Ugh.
even though I've never had that feeling, it just looks gross. Like it looks like it's painful, looks gross. But to me, like I said, that is the biggest mindfuck of the movie, more than the Matrix. Just the way they show it, and it's very horrific, and it's just like. It's a game changer when that happens. Like I said, it feels like something that happens in a movie when they go, "Oh, you wake up," and no, that's not actually real. When this happens, it just changes everything. I remember being shocked when this went down. Like, man,
Yeah.
what am I trying to process right here?
This is a scene too. I think it hit me the hardest this previous watch. I feel like originally it's just like, oh, that's weird that he's there. Okay, there's a bunch of tubes, whatever. But then I'm watching it now, and like just like you said, like the horror of that. Like he's literally never opened his eyes before. He's never moved from that position he's been in. So just like the overload stimulation, you have no idea what's going on. Like you know what people are because you've been living in the Matrix, so you have like some common sense, I guess. But just to be totally exit like that, and it's like a nightmare, but you can't wake up from it. And like I think you would just go into shock in that moment. Your mind would just explode, and you'd probably just be mental. But
Oh, yeah.
also, he's so like he can't get himself out of that situation. You know, like he rips the tube out, but he's still all just like hooked up to all these other wires and tubes. He's in a like you have no idea where you are. like okay, I'm gonna climb down this, I guess. It was just like a lot all at once, and like I always thought it was a pretty wild scene, I guess, but I didn't really understand it as much as I do now. And it's like, man, like that would just like that's traumatizing.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, and like just how long that thing is that he takes out of his mouth. It's like, oh my god, that thing was like in his belly. Jesus.
Oh yeah.
But no, that's wild. And just one quick mention on like their method for like taking care of these solar panel
not the
monsters.
smartest. I want to see who the
No.
president was at that
Yeah,
time.
the
you
more
know?
I'm dissecting this, I'm like, come on, like that's their first and only option here. Like EMPs,
we're gonna nuke the sun.
EMPs. Come on, yeah,
Yeah.
no. So, yeah, but it's glossed over pretty quickly that moment.
Yeah, it's just like, well, how can we get these robots to be the villains? Well, here's the reason. It's like, okay, this works in the world. Good enough.
And then just like the following sequence with that, when like him just like on the table and they're just like nursing him back to health. Neo asks a couple questions here and there, like, "Why do my eyes hurt? Like you never used them before." I like that scene. It's not too short and not too long in my opinion. I think it's a good amount because you could just have him from like the tube. He like freaks out and then he's just like fine again. But like actually going through, like showing the viewer of like them taking out all this metal in his body. They have all the acupuncture on there. Like like his muscles are just atrophied, so they have to like revive it all. Like it's just, I think it's a good sequence. And you know, it's a 2.5 hour movie. Maybe nowadays they're like, yeah, you got to cut some time here and there. I'm so glad they didn't have to do any of that. Like I think it's a really good just sequence.
Yeah. The other one I choose, I always love, and we'll talk more about it in the sequels, but it's the meeting with the Oracle, because when we get in that chicken egg scenario, this is a trick that lots of movies do, but I love, like, they're talking, and obviously she tells him he's not the one. They go back and forth as, like, is that her lying, or is that just telling him, like, what Morpheus said, like, what you need to know, so almost like he had to accept it himself. But I love when she goes, like, watch the vase. He goes, what's vase? And he knocks it over, and then she goes, that one. And then she's like, and the thing that's going to really cook your brain later is, would you have broke it if I didn't say a single thing about that vase? And that, for me, is, like, the biggest, we've talked about this on After 9, and just other reviews and stuff, too, like, that plays in the whole, like, what if scenario that for years I was, like, obsessed with, and maybe, like, hurt my life a little bit of, like, when you start thinking of that stuff of, like, okay, what if she wouldn't have said that? Would you have still broke that vase? Was it fate, or did you did she make it become fate, and like that stuff was really good. And Oracle is just in it for a little bit, but I like that she is this base point too. She told Trinity she was going to fall in love with the Run. She told Morpheus he was going to find the one, told Neo he wasn't the one, which kind of plays into it's kind of fun, and we'll see how it goes, because like in Resurrections, Neo's like questioning it. He's like, I actually never believed I was the one. So it's like, when we look back on this, there might be a way of saying, oh yeah, maybe she was onto something and Neo wasn't the one, but we'll find out in a couple weeks. But yeah, I like the Oracle, just kind of idea around it. It's always good to have that all-knowing character, because then they can just give us just like very cryptic, clues towards the plot, and you can have the all-knowing character say anything, because it's not a plot hole, because you're just like, oh, they must know it because they know everything.
Yeah, it's a role we've seen done many times, but I love the usage of the Oracle in the Matrix. I like how she's just this sweet old lady,
Yeah.
making cookies, and like she's just so like comforting. I love the line when it's like, "Eat this cookie. I promise you, by the time you're done eating it, like you'll just feel better." Like just again, it's just like you go over to grandma's house. She just has a way to make you smile. But I love everything about like following the Oracle when when Neo gets there and it's like, oh, these are other potentials. It's like, you think you're special? No, these are kids that we think could be the one, and like they're spending spoons and like way on another level from where Neo is. Like from his point of view, he must just feel so out of place. Like, obviously I'm not the one. I can't fucking do this. But then again, you get some great dialogue between that one potential kid and Neo of the kids. Like, it's like
There is no spoon.
Yeah, I was going to try and quote it better than that, but there you go. That's a paraphrase of it. It's like, once you understand that there is no spoon, like then you can really start accessing these cheat codes, right? And
all the gifts just shorten it down. It's always there is no spoon. You don't see the full stuff.
All the gifts. Yeah, exactly.
That's the T-shirts. Yeah. One thing I wanted to show, because I completely forgot that in my notes, is when you were talking about transitions earlier of like the camera going through the security cam into the room. The other transition I've always loved, because it's the sound design and the sound editing of it, I love, is when Neo starts to turn to metallic and it starts to crawl up his body, and the camera goes all the way down his throat and he's screaming, but then the scream turns into like a metallic screen because it's like a voice box like covered by metal. It's so good. And again, another thing that like in the moment you could have done that, it could have felt very cheesy, but it doesn't. It feels like horrifying and very cool. But just the sound design in that part, just absolutely love it. Just 10 out of 10 for that scene of like everything with the transition. And
yeah, and I mean, there's so many good ones to shout out, but you mentioned another one that I kind of forgot about that I loved, but another great one too is when Cypher basically rats them out, and then Morpheus sacrifices himself. He's fighting the agent there, and after the agent just like absolutely dismantles him, Agent Smith's walking out. He's like, "Take him," and then like the other cops go in there and they just like beat the shit out of him. But it's kind of like a bird's eye view. I just think it's a really creative like scene sequence, and. Yeah, we could pull up we could go frame by frame on this movie. Just be like, look how amazing
you just
the
watch
shot
the
is.
movie, and then there's just all these shots
watch
again
the
and
movie.
again. Yeah, pretty much.
It's so good, so good.
Anything specifically shout out, gentlemen, before I get into some trivia?
I'm probably forgetting some things here and there, but like this movie, oh God, I'm just not even gonna try what I was gonna say. That was
there is no spoon.
We got 2 more movies for you to.
There is no movie. Yeah.
Back at it. Oh, there's
3
no
technically.
movie.
He can bring it up on the 4th one.
Whenever
That's
I hear
true.
that line, like there is no movie, or Travis is like, there is no spoon, I always think it's like the Ghostbusters line, like, there is no spoon, only Zool. I just think of that Family Guy skit. Oh, it's good.
There is no Peter when he's in the fridge, right? Yeah. Peter, get out of the fridge.
The opening action scene took 6 months of training and 4 days to shoot, so that was a long time for that one. To prepare for the scene where Neo wakes up in the pod, Keanu Reeves lost 15 pounds and shaved his whole body to give Neo an emancipated. Oh my
Emancipated.
god!
He used his manscape.
No, it's not.
razor for
It's
that.
not emancipated. It's EMACIATED.
Emancipated.
Emaciated, I think.
Emaciated. There you go.
Emaciated.
That's
No,
right.
there was no N in that. There was no
Emancipation. The emancipation of one Thomas Anderson.
Yeah. They tried that time. Like, yeah, we're gonna workshop this. Just call it Matrix.
Let's just call it Matrix.
Yeah. Legendary Hong Kong stunt coordinator Wu Ping Young initially refused to work on the film, even after receiving the script, which he liked. He hoped that by asking for an exorbitant fee, it would turn off the Wachowskis. When that failed, he next gave what he considered an impossible request. He agreed only if he could if he had complete control of the fights, and that he would be allowed to train the actors and his own team, and had 4 months to do it. The Wachowskis complied. So this guy, for some reason, I guess, who knows why, I'll have to look more into it, but he was originally just trying to get out of it and just saying, well, I'll only do it for this, and that's okay. I'll only do it for this. Okay, sure. So pretty funny. When Glenda McClary auditioned for the role of Switch, she was only going for half the role, because the character originally was planned to be played by a male and female in both worlds. In the real world, Switch would be a male actor. In the Matrix, it would be a female actor, hence the name Switch. Warner Bros., which we talked about before, of like, oh yeah, they really had a game, stuff like that, still said they refined the idea, and McClary ended up doing the single female role in both environments. I get it, but I love that. Like, I wish that happened, because I think that's really
like that.
cool. Yeah,
especially just because like it's so common for, like you're playing a video game.
Yes.
I'm gonna go in as a female, especially if you're doing like an MMO and like just getting your boyfriends catfishing
Yeah.
people.
Will Smith, as we talked about, was approached. Many people were approached to play what I'm going to talk about. Will Smith was like the one where it's like he was in like final negotiations, stuff like that. Like Wachowskis were pitching to him. He was very close, but he later admitted at the time he was not mature enough as an actor, and that if given the role, he would have messed it up. He also said it before, they just didn't really get it. They said that apparently they pitched him like the moment where Trinity like jumped up and did the kick, and he's just like, I don't understand. Like, I just don't get what the premise is here. He had no regrets though, saying Keanu's brilliant as Neo. Sandra Bullock was offered the role of Trinity, but turned it. And this is from IMDb, so I don't know what the fuck this means, but turned it down because Will Smith was in the film. I don't know what that means. I don't know if she disliked him. I don't know what. So I feel like that is not true at all. I just feel like maybe it was something, but she later regretted it because once Keanu had been recast or as cast, she could have been reunited because they did Speed together. According to Don Davis, Johnny Depp was Lana and Lily's first choice for Neo, but Warner Brothers wanted Brad Pitt or Val Kilmer. After Kilmer and Brad Pitt said no, Warner Brothers was willing to consider Johnny Depp, and then it came down to Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves. When Warner Brothers was pushing Keanu, Warner Brothers was pushing Keanu because he was already tuned in the concept and made a big difference in the casting. So it's so funny when we talk about like, Keanu getting this role. There was like a list of many people before him that were talked to and like considered and all this. Like, he was probably like, I don't know, 10th, 11th stringer, like you look at these people, Johnny Depp, Brad Pitt, Will Smith, but Keanu, who had some movies and some hits and whatnot, but it's funny, like so many talk about what if, so many routes where he could have not been Neo, and it's he lost that role. Two of the biggest main names considered the three biggest names considered for Morpheus was Gary Oldman, Samuel L. Jackson, and Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe said he turned down the role because he just didn't get it. I couldn't get past page 42. That world was not interesting to me. So that was it. But I think Russell Crowe I'm fine with, because I think Russell Crowe, he can be a great actor, but I'm not like the biggest fan of him. I think both Samuel L. Jackson and Gary Oldman would have done a great job, but Fishburne, obviously that's his role and he does a great job. But I guess we'll see in 2 weeks, because there'll be a new Morpheus, and see how Yahya does. But I really don't have any doubts that Yahya's not going to kill it. So the lobby shootout took 10 days to film, so obviously another big shoot. I can't even imagine 10 days shooting that scene, like all that debris going off, like trying to figure out, like, okay, you were standing there, like, man, it just must have been, like, it must have been fun, but that must have been work. That must have been a really...
Yeah. You're working those days.
Yeah, to get the scene to look that good.
It was worth it.
It definitely was such a standout. For people that were almost cast as Trinity, Marissa Tomei, Salma Hayek, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Jennifer Lopez, Angelina Jolie, Drew Barrymore, Kate Hudson, Uma Thurman, Min Nang Wen, Michelle Yeoh, Lucy Liu, Heather Grant, Elizabeth Hurley, and Ashley Judd. So again, another role that had a lot of people that were either offered or auditioned or stuff like that. And there's another names on there that you haven't known before, but yeah, lots of people. It's funny that it was a script that a lot of people were unsure of, but it definitely went through a lot of actors and actresses and stuff. And it's funny that it has, like, when we talk about the duology of like the dude bro action movie versus the intellectual movie, it had that like studios very scared about this movie, but at the same time, like, lots of talent was always attached to it, so it's very interesting. This is the only time in the franchise that Neo uses a gun. So after this, obviously, because he becomes the one, doesn't really need this. But And this is something that we're going to talk about in Reloaded and Revolutions, and we'll talk about in Resurrections, but I thought I'd bring up just because of what we were kind of talking about before. In a deleted subplot reveals that there had been 5 other versions of the one that appeared in the past, all whom have died attempting to fight agents. And then in Matrix Reloaded, the architect explains that there have been 5 previous versions of the Matrix before the current one on the 100 monitor screens in the architect's room, and we'll get into that more later. But again, that's where I've said, like, I think they're going to be leaning into that plot point of this Neo and Trinity that we're meeting right now, like, they in a sense could be ours, but if you believe in resurrection, stuff like that, if you believe like, okay, Trask Snill lives to his 80, he dies, and then I'm reborn. In our universe, honestly, if that is a true thing, you would probably, you'd be could be a new gender, you could be a new person, new name, new nationality, whatever it may be. But in the Matrix, I feel like it's not so simple, and I feel like it's the fact that they had to leave that from this, but then they put in the sequels. I think you're gonna have that whole how there's, like, for minor spoilers, like, there's 5 for just like these 3 movies that have been out for a while. It's like they talk about the 5 other versions, but also they talk about how, like, even if Neo dies, which he kind of does, it's like, well, we're just kind of waiting for when he comes back. And it seems like, well, Resurrections, that's why it's called Resurrections. I always thought it would be called Reboot, but that's why Resurrections makes sense, because in the sequels they heavily hint to there was chosen ones before you and there's going to be chosen ones after you. But it's kind of like, I think, the Jesus aspect of, like, it has that form of Neo, but again, maybe it's Trinity this time. So going to be interesting to see what route we go. I think it'll be some fun conversation centering around that. So Taylor Field, what would you give this movie out of 10?
Oh, man. I would
Too
be
long.
inclined to give it probably a 9 out of 10. I'd say
Oh
my
my
only
God.
con is just I think I'm thinking back if it's like the 1999s, like it's awesome. I would only give it like the one knockoff because I feel like it is a very long movie, but I understand like it had to be long for what it was trying to instill and the exposition it was trying to instill in there. But like, it's definitely not like I can't say it's like a perfect movie for me because it's not something I latched onto growing up. Like, if I latched onto it, I would have been watching the whole trilogy again and again. But I've never had the pull to go back to those other movies and this one until now. I have a reason to. So I know that's. Again, it's just, it was never 100% like this is my growing up movie and whatnot, but like, don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic movie. So
Suicide
Boo
Squad
this
2016. Suicide Squad 10 out of 10, and now we have Matrix.
It's funny you bring that up. I was for some reason I think I was talking about the new Suicide Squad, and Shay's like, "Wasn't there already a Suicide Squad?" I'm like, "Yeah, the bad one." And she's like, "I actually like that one." There you go, Taylor. You got someone else that's in your camp.
I'm not alone.
Yeah. You're alone in this review probably because in my eyes, this is a 10 out of 10 movie. I just think the themes that they tackle is so surreal that it like is still so relevant 20 years later. And yeah, it's just such a rewatchable film. You could watch it for the action. You could watch it for like the more philosophical ideas that they're tackling, and the performances are really great. I really love this cast. It's not like a super A-list cast that's like still relevant today other than Keanu, I guess, but I love everyone that's in there, whether it's the operators. We didn't even really talk about like the 2 brothers, but I like their roles enough. Like,
they're not in the sequels, but no, I agree with you. I like them too. They serve their purpose as well. I'd say
Yeah.
Lawrence Fishburne's still like a name nowadays. He's
not
still up
A-list.
there.
I dropped A-list name.
Okay, well, I think he's still A-list.
Predators?
Lawrence
Come
Fishburne?
on.
Well, he's in he was in BVS.
In my
he's in
eyes-
Ant-Man. He's in John Wick now. All this stuff like.
Okay,
Like,
he's a B+ actor.
I
would
think to
say.
me the difference is to me A-list is your parents know him. I think S tier is where it's like S tier is like.
Oh, well, I didn't know there was an S tier.
Well, in
Okay.
my opinion, like Brad Pitt, that's an S tier. Like when people say, "Oh, he's an A-lister,"
Yeah.
he's more than that. To me, if you're a B-lister, you're doing fucking like Sharknado and stuff like that. So that's why I feel like Lawrence Fishburne would
yeah.
be like an A-lister,
That's
and
fair.
then you have Nick Cage who walks between all worlds.
Yeah, he's
He's a
we can't-
D-lister
we
some
can't grade
years.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's ungradable. And some tiers he's an S tier. You just don't know what you're gonna get the man.
I forget the actor that played Cypher, but he was also the guy that was in Memento, and
Yeah, he's always in those little roles. Yeah, he's in Bad Boys.
he's so good. Yeah, in Bad Boys as well. Like he's so good in those roles that he fills, and it must have been like a stretch of time that he was just in all these movies, because like I can't imagine Bad Boys, this, and Memento were far
seen him in
off.
a while too. I feel like no, definitely they're all '90s movies.
Yeah,
Like,
so like that was when he was really popping off, and I loved him in there, and yeah, just great cast for this movie, I'd say.
yeah, because I'm completely right in thinking. Yeah, Carrie Moss is in Memento. Yeah, so that's the thing where it's like
That's
it's,
right.
Yeah,
she's the one fucking with it. Okay, spoiler alert for
Yeah.
Memento, but she's the one. I guess they're all fucking with him.
Yeah, he's fucking with himself actually too. That's the thing. But like, yeah, no. So it's like a nice little fun reunion there. But I was just trying to figure out because I feel like you said, there was a time period where I saw him in everything. He was always like a side character role. He's also in Daredevil 2003. He's a reporter and stuff like that. He plays Oh no! If Brent and Chris are listening, they're gonna be mad at me. Oh man, who is the reporter? Ah, shit! I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm gonna be so mad. He works for Daily Bugle. He's always in Daredevil comic books and whatnot. Oh man, I know there's Karen, but I'm looking it up right now.
I can't help you, sir. I'm sorry.
No, I know you can't. Ben Urich, that's who it is. He plays Ben Urich in the 2003 Daredevil. So there you go, another fun fact. But I was just trying to look and see what he's actually been up to all these years. What's his? And let's give this man some credit. What's his actual fucking name here? Let's see here. Joe Palatino. He played Cypher. And my phone's bugging out, so I can't look at any more roles. You fucking stupid phone. I'm using my second phone. I cracked the screen, so sometimes it just bugs out and like does stuff by itself. So, but Bad Boys, Midnight Run. Yeah, when's the last thing he was in? Then I'll give my rating. Yeah, he's still acting. 2021. He's all over. He's in MacGyver. He was in Bad Boys. I forgot. He came back for the third one now. So
Bad
he's
Boys
still
for
around.
Life.
The Wachowskis, they did a show on Netflix called Sense8. He was in 5 episodes of that, so he reunited with them there. So he's still around. He's unfortunately just not in any of the stuff I'm watching, but he was in Cats and Dogs, the newest one as a voice, so that's great. Yeah, I'm also a 10 out of 10 of this. This is just like I said. I said in the opening, so you probably understood. I said this is close to a perfect movie, or it is. It's just phenomenal. It's just so rewatchable. Every time I watch it, it feels like an event. It feels like epic. It's just, and the thing is, that someone that likes the sequels, but still has a lot of problems with them. And like you could go back and forth with me. There's some things I really don't like about them. The second it ends, I just want more of the world. I want more of the characters, and that's what the sequels do. But this movie, again, that's why I love the ending. It feels like you could just end it here and be standalone. There's probably a version where you could even watch this and then just jump in Resurrections. But yeah, 10 out of 10. Easily one of the greatest movies of all time. You know, it's just, there's no debate for me in that. If you don't think so, then I get it. But you're wrong. No, but yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be. Oh, go ahead, Kirkland.
Well, I was just gonna touch upon like the budget of it too. What was it, like 60 something million, and then the box office is like 480 million. Like it's one of those
in
where
the 90s as well. That's some good money there.
Yeah, and like it's not like it's a low budget film, but like just the jump from like what it cost to make to like what it made, and it's being released in our theaters now. The 20-year edition, but yeah, it's one of those. It's a special movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to see what the inflation was. So let's see, 1999. So you said this made around 400 million.
I can get the exact number.
Let's see.
Hold on to your horses. Okay, it made 466.3 million.
Okay, so let's just go 60.
Budget was 63.
Yeah, that's already you got a pretty good profit there. But enter number. I did enter a number, you fool. Oh, they don't want any commas in it or.
Fuck.
Sorry. Kill me air here. Let's see here. Oh,
so Hugo Even was great.
Hang on. I forgot to add 2 more zeros, so I'm doing.
It's late.
Oh yeah, we still got a Hawkeye review. It's gonna be good.
Okay, we
do. In inflation, it would have made in today's current market $763 million.
Yeah.
So a whole additional 300 million, and that's that is like, because nowadays when they say like you get a movie, obviously pandemic's different, but back in the day when it's like when you got a movie in the 700 million, like there's blockbusters, but 700 million is considered like you are a massive bona fide huge film, like that's,
Yeah.
and obviously now like people with the billions and stuff that went up, but 700 million was always like okay, because you've got that probably past that point of anything that you had to pay budget back wise, it's just you're in the clear making a bunch of money and you're getting sequels, and
Good on the
I'm pretty sure that's what
Wachowski
Venom, 'cause I remember
siblings.
oh, what, sorry?
I was just saying, good on the Wachowski siblings. Just
Oh, yeah.
phenomenal.
And I think the second one made a lot of money, and then I think the third one does like a little bit of a little slight. But we'll talk about that because the second and third, they film back to back and they released them. And I don't even, we'll look at it, but I don't even think it's a year. I think it's less than a year when they came out.
That's rare.
Yeah, like hang on, I'm gonna look at this one last time because we're killing time
Yeah.
to Hawkeye anyways. But
Fuck yeah,
they
we are. We're
what
having a
is
good
it?
time. Living
There's
in our
not.
simulated
9 out of 10
world.
movie.
Well, I was thinking about either going with a 10 or 9, but I had to be honest. Like
No,
if
I
I
love
was
it.
if it was a 10 out of 10, I would have been putting it on
fine. Make the
consistently
people mad.
every year. So that's
Okay,
the
so
honest
If it was
truth.
if it was Suicide Squad, like
Every
tier,
year, every year that movie's on.
Oh man, okay. So I have it coming up here because yeah, I know the second one was 2002, and then the third one's obviously 2003. But I think it's like 6 months. And I think people said that was one of the things that like really hurt it. Like it was such a quick turnaround. People were like people like Matrix, but this is really risky, and they did it. Okay, so Matrix Reloaded. That's the second one. That came out in. What's coming here?
That's a good sequel name. Reloaded.
They're all R's, and they all end with Rage Against the Machine songs as well. So that's always so. The release
Fitting
date,
for the times.
yeah. I hope they better end one again now. I love Rage Against the Machine back then. I'm going like a bomb. Yeah. The end of the second one, it's so fucking good. The music drop, but
Not
so
familiar.
May what?
I said not familiar.
You had to be. You'll see in the second one. It's gonna drop
Yeah.
you like shit. So okay, so were they both?
Shit.
They were both 2003, I don't think. So anyway, so the second one released in May 15th, 2003. They did do that. So that's why it was even
Wow.
more risky. So then they both came out in 2003. So that came out in May, the Reloaded, and then this third one came out in November. So you had May, and then you had June, July, August, September, October. There's only 5 months in between Reloaded and Revolutions. That's fucking crazy. I can't believe. No wonder why there was a little bit of dip too, because like obviously people didn't love Reload as much, but that was ballsy. Like we're gonna make these two big films. We're gonna release them 5 months apart. Not even a whole year. 5 months apart. That's crazy.
Imagine if Avengers did
Bull
that.
move, Cotton.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. It's just that's crazy. They do that with the other MCU films, but to do like Avengers, Infinity War, then Endgame, it's like that was they should have walked that one back. They should have been like, let's make it a year, But because
It's time to
even
do
then,
prediction casts. Come on.
well, yeah, true. But like even then, it's just like the way things came to VHS and DVD. You feel like Matrix 2 was like just coming to DVD and VHS as the third one was coming out. Like back then. So.
Yeah.
But speaking of, next week our reviews will only be about a week apart, so we're even more than the movie. But yeah, this will be live, and then we'll be doing Reloaded and Revolutions and then Resurrection. So thank you very much for tuning in. I promise you'll hear from us next. It'll not be boring. Take that red pill.
Bye-bye.